Hey everyone, how's it going? Today I wanted to do another video talking about the Little Season and some more evidence that we are in the Little Season, and some things that were left behind from the Millennial Kingdom that we can trace back to that time as well. So we know about the old world buildings and stuff, how those were made in the Millennial Kingdom, but I have thought of a few other stuff that have been left behind, like for example, like classical music as well. If you just listen to classical music, it truly does, it sounds like it was made like in another world, in a completely different time, and I think it was. I think that the classical music was composed all in the Millennial Kingdom, and that's why we can't make like originals like that today. It was like truly something else. So I think that this was from the Millennial Kingdom, just using that as an example. But there's also some other stuff like technology, for example. I really think that they had advanced technology in the Millennial Kingdom, and I think when Satan was loosed, I think he was trying to bring back that technology just in his own way, like change it up a bit, make his own version of it. So I think like they had something like the internet, but it wasn't exactly the internet. It was like more spiritual, like they probably had telepathy, things like that, something to communicate with each other, and they probably had some other advanced technologies, advanced medicine and stuff like that. And I think when Satan was loosed, he tried to bring that back, because if you think about it, like in the 20th century there was just such a big technological boom. Like we went from having nothing to like so much, like airplanes, the internet, so much stuff, like all in one century. And so I don't think that's a coincidence, because like shortly after the Little Season, so once the Little Season began, there's like the Great Reset, right? Like everything was removed, everything was reset, Satan was loosed, people were on horses and buggies and things like that. And then Satan slowly tried to bring these technologies that were back from the Millennial Kingdom back on Earth, and it tried to have his own version of it, right? Like tried to recreate these things like with his own version of it. So I think that's what happened, and that's why we have suddenly so much technology and why it increased so much in the 20th century. But also I think like there's also some other stuff, like some old coins, like let's say from like, for example, 1562 or something like that. You have like an old coin and people think it's from 1562, but it's really like from 562 from the Millennial Kingdom. And the reason they think that is because when you look at these coins, the 1 is actually a J. So it's actually not a 1, but it's a J, which stands for Jesus, like after Jesus, like 562 AD. And people think it's actually a 1, even though it's a J. So there's that as well on these old coins. So that's like instead of being like actually from 1562, it's actually from 562. So there's that. But some other things is like some things like the things in the sky. A lot of people have collective memories of the sky being different as well. Have more, there being more stars and things like that. And I don't think that's a coincidence either. If we remember in the Great Tribulation, 1/3 of the stars fell, right? So I do think that there was more stars in the sky before, and so like when the stars fell, there's way less now. And then also some people have collective memories of the sun being yellow, the blue being more the sky being more blue, right? And now it's like much more pale, and the sun is white, but people remember the sun being yellow. I think like those were collective memories from like before the tribulation, sort of, that people have, because the sky was completely changed during the tribulation. Like everything kind of changed since then, right? Another thing is like the continents, right? So we're taught like Pangea, there was like Pangea's like one land all at one place, and we're taught like for millions of years this separated, right? So I don't buy that. And then other people think like this actually happened during the flood, but I actually think this happened in the Great Tribulation, right? That where there was that earthquake like no other. I think that's what caused the continents to split apart, right? That makes sense, right? Because earthquakes split apart land. This earthquake was like no other earthquake ever, and that's why I think this all used to be one land. It split apart into two continents. So the continental drift happened at that period in the Great Tribulation. So I think that happened as well. So everything was different, before, and then once that happened, the Earth looked completely different. And then, is there anything else I wanted to talk about? I think. Oh yeah, I also wanted to talk about the saints. So during the Millennial Kingdom, Jesus and his saints were reigning on earth, right? So they were actually here on earth. But because New Jerusalem, I made another video about this before, but New Jerusalem was actually created before, actually right before before the plagues came on Earth, like New Jerusalem was up in the sky. I made another video before, you can check it out, but the reason I'm saying this is because I think that the saints and Jesus actually transported back and forth from New Jerusalem to Earth at times, right? So they weren't always on, like, I think they were reigning on Earth for sure. They were on Earth. Jesus and his saints were here on Earth, different things like that. But they transported back and forth from New Jerusalem in the sky down to Earth during the Millennial Kingdom. And then once Satan was loosed, they hid themselves. They're now up in New Jerusalem and staying there because they can't be here on this wicked Earth when Satan is released, right? So that makes sense. They hid themselves, and now they're up in New Jerusalem when Satan was released. So I wanted to mention that as well, and I think that's it. But yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. It's very interesting looking at some of the evidence that we have that the Millennial Kingdom happened and that we are currently living in Satan's little season. It's definitely fun to talk about. But yeah, I think that's it. All right, God bless.